33% only of the Egyptian market is banked. And I would say they're massively underbanked. The Yalla app proposition in Egypt, we have just launched this in mid-December 2021, and it was a blast.
Welcome to our 11th episode, as Ruby said, of Fintech Founders. And to talk to us today is my friend Waleed Sadek. Waleed, you're zooming in from Cairo today?
I'm Dubai today.
Ah, you're in Dubai. So you're just down the road from me. So you'll have to take me out for a coffee later then. Waleed Sadek has built, as you heard, a lot of payment solutions in Egypt as the founder and CEO of PaySky. But Waleed, you've been in payments quite a long time, right? You've been, going back to international companies. So tell us your journey about how you got into payments and how you got into fintech.
Right. So thank you, Ronit. Thank you for having me today. And well, basically, I've been in payment space for over 18 years now. I used to lead innovations at Visa for the Middle East and Africa. And then I moved with Visa to London office to manage the strategy for MEA region. That's Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa. And from there, it was obvious that there were some challenges in the electronic payments ecosystem and value chain. Challenges that needed to be tackled in a more digital way, I would say. And that was the idea behind PaySky. Basically, we're digitizing the payments infrastructure on both ends, on acceptance and as well as on a payment method or slash issuance. And that's what we have built over the years. We have deployed our solutions in Egypt and 8 more markets. And we have very, very interesting stories to share with you today along the discussion.
So Waleed, when did you have the idea of PaySky, and how did you operationalize the idea? What were like the key steps? So from the light bulb moment, or I don't know if it was the eureka moment in the bath or the shower, or trying to pay somewhere. Like, tell us like when you said that I need to do this myself.
Right. It was a cumulative thing. I mean, it was started initially by while working at Visa, you get to experience a lot of opportunities, a lot of engagements, a lot of projects with banks, central banks, and so on. It was obvious that there was something missing in order to aid the digital transformation of payments and financial services. Banks were structured in a way, they used solutions from vendors, but then these solutions were designed decades ago. They are not catering for the new aspiration of the new generation. And that was sparked off by the evolution of payments and financial services happening in the East, in the likes of Alipay and WeChat Pay in China, Paytm in India, Grab Pay in Singapore, and so on. So putting the two parts together in this equation, it was obvious that 1, financial services needed disruption / evolution. 2, digital players are completely redesigning this space. So the idea was, why can't we build this digital enablement layer on top of the existing legacy infrastructure so that we can enable existing incumbents to be as disruptive and competitive and innovative as the new players would be. And that's exactly what we're building at PaySky.
Thank you for that introduction. Let's talk a little bit about the product or products that you have. So to the audience, say if they're not familiar with the Egyptian market or the GCC, walk them through what some of the core products are that PaySky offers.
So basically at PaySky, we digitize payments on both ends, as I mentioned before. So on one end, we digitize the acceptance of payments through our super payment gateway, where we accept transactions from card present channels like POS, QR codes, mini POS, or card not present channels like e-commerce and in-app purchases. We have built a very comprehensive suite of solutions around products and SDKs to enable integrations into these our payment gateway. And we have lent this capability to banks, central banks, telecom operators, post institutions, and so on. On that front, as we stand now, 9 of the 9 acquiring banks in Egypt are using our platform for card processing. 2 of the 3 telecom operators was licensed to do a digital acceptance are using our platforms. Egypt Host, as well as the central bank, who's adopted our platform as the national payment gateway of Egypt under the name UPG, Unified Payment Gateway. We've extended this offering as well beyond Egypt, so it exists now in multiple markets used by banks and central banks as national payment systems. On the other hand, we have built a consumer proposition. It's not a wallet, and it's not just a card. So it's not the Eastern model alone or the Western model alone. It's a bit of both. It's a blend of best of both worlds, if you will. So it's a card with a super app. So from the card side, we get the global interoperability and a global scalability. And on the super app side, we get the frequency of usage and the number of use cases to increase the number of transactions we get to serve our customers with. And that basically, both in tandem, would build an ecosystem to serve consumers and businesses in one large offering.
Right. And on the super app, I've been following on social media and media. You've had quite a bit of news on that front, right?
Sure. So Egypt, we started the Yalla app proposition in Egypt. We've just launched this in mid-December 2021, and it was a blast. It was brilliantly adopted and accepted and perceived by the Egyptian market. The Egyptian market is like 33% only of the Egyptian market is banked, and I would say they're massively underbanked. So when we launched our card and super app proposition in Egypt in December, the uptake was magnificent. We have made hundreds of thousands of customers card issued and onboardings and downloads in the past 70 days. Hundreds of millions of Egyptian pounds worth of transaction volumes. Seems that they have just been waiting for that and they cannot get enough of it. So we've already exceeded the quarter's forecast in the first 60 days, and we're catering for this significant demand by more and more use cases to tackle the actual needs that we've touched from our customers.
Waleed,
in essence, Yalla Super App offers bundles of services.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, please go ahead.
So I was actually going to say, what does the Yalla Super App allow you to do as a client? So please carry on.
Right. So Yalla as a super app offers bundles of services from financial and non-financial services. On financial services, you can do payments to merchants online and offline. You can do remittance. You can transfer money to all the Yalla ecosystem participants by having a Yalla card. And you can do this in a very innovative ways. Like you can touch 2 phones together and money will be moved, or you can move money over a QR code, or you can beam a specific sound tone, and then a receiving party will be notified and pay. And of course, by emails and SMS and mobile numbers. But also you can do specific financial services that are new to the market, like we call them pay now, buy later, not the buy now, pay later. So you can do savings towards an objective, like I would like to buy a new iPhone. So you start to save towards that objective. Daily, the application will either remind you to make savings, or it will round up your transactions to save towards that objective. At the time, when they reach the objective, you can just buy this from the Yalla Mall, which is another use case within the app. It's a marketplace. And then we also have investment propositions that's coming up soon, where people can invest in variety of forms of investments digitally from the app with no minimum amount. So they can invest literally few pounds, Egyptian pounds, from the app in ease and convenience. And then we have other non-financial services like e-commerce solution and services in the Yalla Mall, where it's basically an aggregation of marketplaces where people can just either directly go and purchase from the app, or they can engage in saving schemes towards a purchase, like I've explained in the pay now, buy later proposition. And then we have the Yalla on-demand services, where customers can request food, request medicine, groceries, and daily supplies. And then through our partners and API integrations, we will deliver that to them. And a fourth group of services is Yalla Rewards, where basically we reward our customers for everything they do within our app. That includes hundreds of offers and special discounts from our partner merchants. And finally, we have Yalla Digital Communities, where we digitize complete communities using the Yalla Super App in terms of closed communities like sporting clubs, universities, schools, residential compounds, and so on, from access control to in-community services to news and collaboration, to in-community stores, and so on.
And is this the first super app at scale in Egypt? I mean, has this existed before? And do you think you're going to see others trying to copy you in Egypt?
And how we stand now and how we position this and how we bundle this value offering, this is by far the most advanced, and it's the first that comes with all these propositions at once. There have been attempts for people bundling one or two use cases together, but not in the full-fledged and not in the concept and essence of a super app. That's the first attempt. That's the first point. The second point, of course, there will be other attempts to come up with something similar. Market is big, 100 million population, 105 million population, only 33% of which is banked. So it can accommodate a lot of players into that space. And as I usually see, always good for evolution and awareness.
And when you look at other markets in the region, do you think super apps have a role to play in, say, a Saudi Arabia, a Pakistan, a UAE? What are the sort of the differences to Egypt, the challenges of doing, say, a super app proposition in those countries? Do you expect them to be a successful business model? I guess the answer is different for each of these countries, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Exactly, as you rightly said, it's different proposition for a different market, because the stage of maturity and stage of market expectations varies a lot from one market to the other. But on top of out of the names you've mentioned, Pakistan is actually very, very close to the Egyptian market fundamentals and situation in terms of evolution and maturity. So we believe that super app in Pakistan will make a lot of sense. And I can share with you that we are actually launching our Yalla in Pakistan. It will be live before end of this year, inshallah. So actually, it's coming up soon. As for the proposition, more developed or more market like the Saudi Arabian market, it will be a different bet. It will be a bet on convenience and accessibility and digital experience, rather than just financial inclusion. That's what we've been betting on in Egypt and Pakistan. So there still would be a good opportunity for the entrance into these markets with different value proposition, value prioritization.
And if we just focus in on Pakistan, and I'd love to hear a bit more of your thoughts on sort of compare and contrast Pakistan and Egypt, because maybe in this part of the world, or more broadly this part of the world, those, as you said, seem like similar markets, but obviously you have a lot of very deep experience in Egypt. You build businesses there. To walk me through, without giving away too many trade secrets, the kind of the plans of Pakistan, like the market entry strategy. How do you think it's a copy paste, slightly to change, or is it fundamentally quite a different market? So you have to have a different approach to Pakistan.
It's definitely not a copy paste, but it's also not a complete market product redesign and proposition rebundling. There is a lot of common grounds between Egypt and Pakistan as markets. Population of Pakistan is almost double the population of Egypt. It's still a younger population. So there are a lot of similarities that will make the proposition very, very similar, but at the same time, it has its own uniqueness. And we are catering for this uniqueness while entering the market as well. And of course, the value of local insights and local market knowledge cannot be emphasized enough. So by working with local teams and local team members, we're completing our understanding of the Pakistani market so that we can best cater for it.
And UAE and Saudi, they're obviously different markets to Egypt and Pakistan. They're different to each other. Do we need another, no disrespect, but do we need another payment app in the UAE? I mean, most of us are banked. There are lots of payment startups that have been running around the last 2 or 3 years in the UAE with varying degrees of success. What's the use case of the edge here? a lot of smart people trying to build payment companies in the UAE, and I don't know, are they going anywhere?
Well, it depends on your definition of payments. So if you're just going to build a company that will offer a payment gateway and just run around after
Yeah.
merchants trying to onboard them, then this might not be the best strategy because it's a market is already very saturated with that. But the payment definition is much wider than this. So when you look at the concept of a pay now, buy later, for example, do you know of an app in UAE that allows you to save towards an objective now? I cannot name any. Would you know an app that would allow you to invest 50 dirhams, only 50 dirhams if you have 50 dirhams in an investment product? I cannot name any as well. So there are so many other features, and there are so many other features coming up as well in our roadmap. So it's just not about repeating what the market already has, but innovating in more and more use cases to help people better manage their money.
Right, right, right. Yeah, no, 50 dirhams is definitely, that takes fractional savings or fractional investing to a new atomic extreme. But there is a market for that. I mean, there is a market below the banks or the almost private banks when it comes to investing that needs to be served, and hopefully technology can help us do that. Thinking in terms of partnerships, you've partnered with various players in the region, payment companies, other institutions. Walk us through the attitude amongst more established, whether it's payment companies or banks, to partnering with fintechs, people like yourselves. What's it like? I mean, obviously everyone says in public, "Oh, we want to hug, be friends with the fintechs," but what's it really like?
Right. It's different in reality, to be honest. Well, there are different set of partners. For example, card schemes are very prominent partner to us. Specifically, Visa. We work very closely with them, and they are very open to innovation and very supportive to that as well. The other set of partners is definitely by design the financial institutions, being banks, and while, as you rightly said, some of their PR strategies would say that we are fintech friendly, that is not necessarily what really happens in closed doors. In closed doors, things would take forever to get done, either intentionally or by design, being bureaucracy. But a matter of fact is, they are not really as delivering on the PR strategy. So beyond the PR strategy, so that could have multiple reasons. One of which is basically they are perceiving fintech as competition, fintech companies as competition, and they are right in multiple ways. I mean, if you look at Paytm in India, Paytm had more customers than the largest bank in India. Same goes for Alipay as well. They have 1.2 billion customers. So fintechs could eventually be a competition, but I think only the clever and wise banks would see this as an opportunity, and they would align forces early on, so that when any traction happens to the fintech companies, they would actually benefit from this in some sort or another. Of course, the regulators are still protecting banks in a big way. So fintechs will have to work with the banks. So it's up to the banks now to maximize the returns on this partnership, and until the regulations actually opens up to include fintechs in the mainstream financial services offering.
So the banks are still generally, either due to bureaucratic inertia or due to competitive fear, not really matching their PR statements from a CEO level down to the business level of working with you guys. As part is interesting. Have you seen any change or progress? Is that getting any better, or is it still the Red Sea is as wide as it is? I mean, is it getting any?
I think it's different also on market by market basis. So for credit, I have to give this to the Saudi banks. Saudi banks are very, very pro fintech.
Really?
Yes. I cannot say the same for actually any other market in GCC and North Africa.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so they are very pro fintech. They kind of got the message early on. Now they are working with fintechs in a way that they would build on their capabilities and consume it and grow it, and rather than just stop it till someone else comes and takes it. in other markets like in Egypt, although it's not the same in terms of fintech proactiveness, but the regulator, on the other hand, is very fintech friendly. So the regulator is very endorsing the fintechs in a very strong way, facilitating a lot of market entry barriers, and actually, helping the fintechs actually take the products and projects into a nationwide scale of implementation. When we implemented the Unified Payment Gateway with the Egyptian Central Bank and the local switch EBC, we were like two and a half years old. But then they believed in us. They tested the system. It was delivering. It was proven to be capable of handling a market in that size. And they invested their trust in us, and we delivered on their trust.
So you were a 2.5-year-old fintech, and you helped the Egyptians, the authorities, build their payment gateway.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. I mean, that's a really young company.
Thank you. Yeah,
build a payment gateway. Talking about, again, the gap between reality and truth, and I don't know how to exactly phrase this. There's been a lot of talk about the amount of capital that's come into this space, the amount of money flowing in the Middle East, in Africa, from a position 3 years ago when there was not very much VC money coming in. There's a lot of VC money, local, international, that's flooding in, particularly to fintech. What's your view? Your kind of no holes barred, no censorship view on the funding landscape. Is it better and different now for founders like yourself compared to 3 or 5 years ago? How good is it, or how difficult is it still?
Right. So while it's better than 3 to 5 years ago, by all means, but it's way behind in terms of meeting expectations of founders and entrepreneurs. The amount of funding, as well as the flexibility and cycle to close funding, is not really keeping up with the pace of the market development. Definitely way behind the global standard, and definitely less than what the market expects and needs in order to maintain its healthy growth. So I think that's a huge gap in that space in this region, and definitely will be of return and value for foreign VCs to come and serve that space in that particular part of the world.
So there's a quantity gap still in terms of the amount of capital available, as well as a quality issue, you're saying? Because the impression from the outside is that, look, it's just there's just a lot of capital available right now.
Not true. I think, again, that's a PR exercises of VCs. Right. They are trying to maintain the sense that there is a hot market and there is of an abundance of funding, so that they can encourage others to come. But matter of fact, so that they can do their exits and so on. But matter of fact, no, it's not that efficient and not that quick, and not that wise money that you would also encourage to have in your company as the founder.
Right. So again, there's a gap here, just like there's a gap between what the regional banks say, we love fintech, want to work with fintechs, to the reality on the ground. There's a gap between some of the media coverage that the VCs have about we love fintech, and then what's actually happening on the ground. That's interesting. It's interesting. We're sort of running up to the half an hour mark, which is coming to the end of our conversation, but maybe a couple of questions to wrap up. One on talent, and then one on the future, crystal ball gazing. Because one of the other things that you hear a lot about in the region, both here in the UAE and other markets, is there's not enough relevant or qualified talent to build a fintech ecosystem or a tech ecosystem. Do you agree with that? And if so, how can we change that?
Frankly, talent is always a challenge in any emerging ecosystem, and we have been through this challenge ourselves. And the solution to that was that we were building our own talent pool and growing with our own talent base and our members of staff. So fintech specifically and payment solutions and financial services is a very specialized niche. you wouldn't abundantly find resources for in the market. So you will have to build this internal capabilities, or these capabilities in-house. But the base readiness of staff in terms of technology readiness or product design readiness, and so commercial readiness, you can find that abundantly. It's just a matter of upgrading these capabilities into fintech specific relevant knowledge. And we have been investing in this, and I think there could be more wider initiatives to develop this across the whole market, not specifically on company by company level. And that will definitely have its own positive impact on the ecosystem in this region.
And my final question is a crystal ball gazing question. It's 2025. What does PaySky, what does Yalla app, what does it look like? Or are you on your boat sailing around the world at that stage, or are you building the next stage of, PaySky 3.0 or whatever it is by then? What does it look like in terms of products and region? So yeah, the crystal ball gazing question.
Right. So the closest thing I would see PaySky at by 2025 would be that we will be present in most of the markets in Africa and the Middle East, empowering the payments infrastructure and banks and telecom operators and central banks. That's on one end of PaySky, being the B2B payment solutions provider. On the other hand, under the Yalla hat and the Yalla umbrella, I would say we would easily be the largest digital financial service provider by then. We're already tackling the Egyptian market with making huge tractions, alhamdulillah, and by entering Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, UAE in 2022, with 5 other markets in 2023. Not a single retail bank or a fintech would be existing in 9 markets with such a rich proposition. And with the pace of traction we're making now, it's not bragging, but I think we're up for another and financial, hopefully with the good sense of it in this part of the world.
So 2025, you're the and financial of the Middle East and Africa.
Yes, hopefully.
In a good sense of the word.
Good sense of the world, yeah.
Waleed Sadek, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to follow your story, PaySky's story, what's the best way to do that? Is it just, is it on LinkedIn? Is it social media? How do they keep in touch with what your, as the story unfolds?
Yeah, the best way would be to follow PaySky page on LinkedIn. And of course, we also have a very rich website on our products and propositions. And we usually share all of our new products and achievements on the LinkedIn page.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon from Dubai. Very much appreciated, Waleed, as ever.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Ronit.
Thank you.